Hi everyone, and welcome back to the My Favorite Things YouTube channel. This is Mindy Egan, and in today's video, I'm going to be working with this delicate winter wreath and winter songbird stamp sets. So here's a look at that winter wreath. It has the image and then 3 medium-sized sentiments and also a coordinating die, and I'm going to show you an easy way to line this up. I'm starting by die cutting this wreath out on white cardstock first. Now keep both pieces. We are going to use this as our guide to stamp this image. This, you can see, has the opening, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get this to line up perfectly. So I am laying this in that opening that I die cut out. Then I can pick that up with the door of my MISTI, and I'm going to bring in my positive piece. So this is the piece I'll actually be using, and that just fits right in like a puzzle. Then I can ink up my image with the MFT Extreme Black ink, and I'll stamp this down. And this is going to have everything line up perfectly in that area. You won't have to worry about fiddling with the stamp set because we lined it up in that negative piece. Then an easy way to remove this is I'm just going to take my tweezers and I can just pop that right on out. And everything is stamped in perfect placement. Now, to also go along, I'm going to be stamping some images from the Winter Songbird stamp set. I picked out a couple of these adorable whimsical birds. I love the simplicity of them and their cute little outfits. And I also picked out some of the leaf images that are in there. I wanted to fill the wreath in just a little bit more. Now I'm going to work on some Copic coloring, and I did some really simple coloring on this. I don't have a lot of shading because this is a very small area to work with. So I went around with a YG06 and colored in kind of the larger of the leaves, not doing a lot of shading on this, just adding in some of that color. So I did that all around this wreath. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of a darker color. This is YG67. This is just going to give some contrast to my wreath. And I colored that with or onto the smaller leaves. And I did add just some small flicks in the bigger leaves. Now for the small flowers that are on there, I did R24. I did the top of the acorn with E79 and filled in the acorn with E57. So no shading in there, just straight coloring. I did the same thing for the leaf images that I have on my card here. And for my little bird, I decided to go with a bluebird. So I have B04, B02, 01, and 00. And I wanted to add just a little bit more of a shadow area, so I brought in B06. Then for the belly, I have the W3, W1, and W00, just a really nice light gray color. And giving some R24 for the illusion of a Santa hat, since this is the Winter Songbird collection. I use the same colors on my second bird, and I'm turning this into, I think it's a chickadee, the black and kind of warm gray colors, I think it is a chickadee. And so I use the T9, T6, and T4. Then after I have this last bird colored in, I'm going to take out the coordinating dies for each of these. I'm going to line them up over each of the images, hold them in place just with some low tack tape or washi tape, and then run these through my die cut machine. So here's a look at what I have an idea for my card. I have a card base cut from a fog or light gray cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. A white panel that's 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and then I'm just kind of playing with the alignment of my images. This is important because I'm going to be stamping a sentiment in the center, so I need to have an idea where everything is going to be. And I also took that over to my MISTI tool. Then I pulled the birds out and lined up my Miss You sentiment. I don't have any Miss You cards, so I really love this sentiment and the script of it. And then once I lined that up, I removed the wreath, and I'm going to stamp this in the black ink. Now you could also heat emboss this, but everything was just so light and whimsical, I wanted the sentiment to really stand out. I did stamp it twice to make sure that it was really nice and bold black to stand out from my card. And to put my card together, I cut 3 more pieces of cardstock to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I attached them all together and layered it behind my stamped panel here. This is just adding dimension. I prefer to use cardstock over foam just because it's even dimension over the entire panel. And then I can attach that to my fog or light gray card base. And that's going to give me just a really nice border around that stamped panel. Then I can bring in my wreath, and you could use some liquid glue, which was my kind of my first go-to, but I decided to use a tape runner. And the reason for that is because if I need to change the layout at all, it's a lot easier for me to just rub away any of that tape runner than it is with the liquid glue. So I used the tape runner on most of the images when I adhered them to the card, and I didn't push down until I was perfectly happy with the placement. So adding in that extra foliage to kind of fill in that wreath a little bit, kind of give my birds a little bit more to sit on. I'll have a little bit hanging off the card, which I'll trim off later on with some scissors. Tucking in just a little bit to come around my sentiment. And for the placement of my birds, I'm going to have my little chickadee up there, and then my bluebird's going to be on top. I want to make sure I'm not overlapping my sentiment at all. And then once I'm happy with where the birds are going to be, I'm going to add that tape runner behind the chickadee, tuck that in, and then I placed little foam squares behind my bluebird. So that popped it up just a little bit. To add just a little bit more interest, I'm adding some of the clear round drops onto the card front with my embellishment wand and some liquid glue. And for a little sparkle, I'm bringing in a glitter gloss pen, and I'm going to color in all of the leaves and the acorns with that glitter. That will complete my card today. I love how whimsical these birds and this wreath is, and these two sets coordinate together so well. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you again real soon.